Alright, so got some food. Well, if you can call it food. Road food is not normally very much food, but I got some food in my belly, and I've been thinking about what I saw. And it's all sort of a blur, so I don't remember a lot of details. Some people prayed, some people sang. One of the pastor organizers had met with some children inside of the Dilley concentration camp, and so he shared a song. He shared what he saw in there and what the kids asked. I guess he asked them, what do you want people to know? The people outside here, what do you want them to know about you? And then I guess they wrote a song. So he taught us the song, and I don't remember it. This is the place where they had their crayons taken away, so they couldn't draw pictures about what was happening. This is the place where they aren't allowed to go to their in-person meetings anymore. The kids aren't, presumably because they end up crying and then are inconsolable, and it unnumbs them, right? So I don't know that for sure, but I'm guessing that's part of it, is that when you have a kid who's just dissociated and shut down, they're easier to control. And if a kid gets sort of woken up a little bit and unnumbed and is now feeling all their sadness and feeling all their fear and feeling all that again after having seen a family member or having seen a member of the press or having seen a lawyer or whomever, that probably makes them more difficult to control. Now, do I know that for sure? Do I know that's the reason? Of course I don't know that for sure, but it makes sense. Anyway, so he spoke about that, and then there was another pastor who spoke and prayed, and then there were some more activist type folks who spoke and prayed. Really, the ones that stood out to me, the survivors of that Japanese internment camp were brought to the front, and they had a representative, one of the survivors they had chosen somehow to talk about her experience, and to talk about her life after being in the camp, and that she was in there for 4 years. And some of the others were just weeping. They weren't really able to speak. So it was that one alone who spoke for that group, and it was so heartbreaking and sort of mind numbing to look at these people and to realize they're watching it happen again, right? So that was really powerful. And then there was a gentleman who was from a synagogue, and he talked about the never again, stance from the Jewish experience with the Nazis and their death camps and concentration camps. And that was, again, because I've been there, because I've seen. I saw the Berlin Wall and the Checkpoint Charlie before any of that came down. I think that came down in 89 or 90, but I went there as a kid and, saw the museum and saw the barbed wire and saw all the photographs, and I was an Army kid, so I was used to seeing barbed wire. It's not like, oh, the barbed wire is so scary, but this was scary because it had like a no man's land. It's not just one wall, right? It's like a barrier and then like a no man's land in between with towers and armed guards. And so there was a museum on the Germany side, not on the Russian side, on the Germany side. So we could go into that side and see the pictures and the cars that had people traveling in their trunks and that sort of thing. And then, of course, like I said before, I've been to Dachau. I've been to that particular camp. So what when this gentleman was speaking, I really resonated with what he was saying, just because he was describing things that, I've seen, air that I've breathed, So he spoke and prayed, and then some Hispanic families came up and shared their stories. Some of them were mothers who had been detained and had their children taken away. Some of them were children who had been separated from their parents when they were younger. Some of them were families who had just been released like a couple months ago, and they were really risking being put back in. I can only imagine that after you get out, you just want to hide, right? You just want to make sure that nobody can find you. And instead, they were bravely standing in front of this group and using microphones to tell their stories. And that was really humbling. I was so impressed and just inspired by their diligence and their resilience and their determination to speak out, and not just to hide and try to surround themselves with comfort and safety. That would be my big temptation. So throughout the whole thing, throughout all of this, let me go back. Before any of the survivors got to the park. Hello, Mr. Truck. Why don't you stay in your lane? Thank you. Before any of the survivors got to the park, they gathered everybody up together who was at the park, and they're like, okay, they're almost here. Let's give them a good welcome, and here's some signs you can hold, and we've got some banners here. We need some volunteers to hold the banners. You know what's coming next. I'm young, I'm strong, I'm an extrovert. It's like, sure, I'll hold the corner of a banner. 3 hours later, I'm still holding the corner of that banner. Not only did I hold that banner to welcome the survivors, for which I was, happy to do, but then they said, hey, why don't you guys who are holding the banners, why don't you go stand up at the front behind the area that we have marked off for our speakers so that they can be the backdrop for the speakers. Okay. What am I going to say? No, I'm going to say yes. So me and the two other people holding our banner went and stood behind the area that had been set aside for the speakers, and we stood there for the entire thing. So all the pictures of these people and all the video and the many people taking videos, many people taking pictures, I'm in stinking all of them. That was not my intention. So anyway, that's what I did. I saw everything from the back. So I don't know what these people's faces looked like. I couldn't understand everything they were saying. I was just trying not to have my knees lock up and my feet were falling asleep. And I was just trying to hold this banner up so it could be seen. And I was trying not to be a distraction behind whoever was talking. So me and the gentleman next to me, we sort of made a pact. We were holding this banner. We made a pact that we would offer up our suffering as a suffering sacrifice, and offer it up in solidarity. Now, it's a very small sacrifice, right? I understand that, but it did make the pain and discomfort a little more bearable, to know that I could do at least this, right? If nothing else, if I go home and do nothing else, I can at least stand here for 3 hours and hold this banner. So I did. And we decided that because of the wind it would make sense to stand on the bottom corner and just hold up the top corner so that the wind wouldn't keep catching it and blowing it around. And that worked fine, except that meant you couldn't move. You couldn't readjust your feet, because every time you tried to readjust your feet, the wind would catch the banner and blow it around. So we really did just stand at attention for 3 hours. All of my ROTC and marching band training really came into good use. I knew to keep my belly soft. I knew to keep my knees soft. I knew to wiggle my toes and to shift my weight back and forth a little bit. I knew not to lock my knees. Anyway, so there's that. And the speakers came up and talked, and we sang and we prayed, and I didn't realize it had been 3 hours, so it was definitely something that I'm really glad that I did. And then at the end, we, moved all the chairs, because they brought folding chairs. We moved all the chairs off to the side and took a picture. And guess where they wanted the banners? In the front. So I'm in the front holding these banners with all these people, and I have nothing to do with this event, right? I'm not an organizer. I'm not a contact person. I'm not a pay attentioner. I just showed up 40 minutes late, which happened to be 20 minutes early, and figured, yeah, I can hold a banner. So there you go. You just never know. You never know what the good works that are gonna be. But you just walk forward with an open hand and do what you can. So after all of that, and it was, again, really moving and very lovely, but very simple. Like, it wasn't fancy, it wasn't decorated. They just had, extension cords and metal folding chairs and a white plastic table with this, sound equipment on it. It wasn't fancy, but it was really beautiful. It was really sincere. And I'm really sick of political posturing. So 3 hours of sincerity was pretty amazing. So then, we're cleaning up and we're picking up all the trash off the ground, and and it felt really good to bend down and pick up trash. I won't lie. It was nice to straighten my hamstrings and stretch them out a little bit. So then I got in the car and I'm like looking at the map, and I'm trying to decide, like, am I going to drive home or am I going to go get something to eat? And while I was sitting there, dude, you just can't make this stuff up. While I was sitting there, I looked up and there was a hipster looking dude, and I mean maybe he's 25, so not a true hipster, because not my age, right? But he was probably 25. He had like the black horn rim type glasses, and he had a curly hair and a ponytail and like real chiseled features, and his hair was like dark and shiny, and he had like, I don't know, like Vans type shoes on. They were like brownish, leatherish, whatever. I didn't really, I had seen him because he was walking around taking pictures, and he had a big fancy camera, and he had he had a big fancy camera, and he was going around and interviewing people with it. He had a big microphone with like a fluffy plosive guard on it. I don't know if that's what that's called, but anyway, so he's sitting there at the picnic table right in front of my car, and he's got his laptop out, and he's got his camera hooked up to it, and he's like, uploading his photographs from his camera to the laptop, right? And I'm just like, I noted it, but it's like, oh, there he is. That's the photographer dude. Oh, he's got his stuff hooked up. No big deal. So I'm sitting there, and I'm trying to decide what I'm going to do, and I'm letting the car cool off. I got the windows open. I got the AC on, whatever. And I look up, and there's an old gentleman sort of shuffling through the park. And I looked at him, and I thought, I don't remember seeing him at the event. So maybe he's not someone that's just leaving from the event. Maybe he's a local person who's just walking through the park, right? Like I just sort of noted him and had a fleeting thought, but not really like looking at him very well. Well, the next thing I know, this photographer dude has stood up and is walking over towards that guy. And I thought, well, maybe he's, maybe he's going to get another interview. Maybe he needs another personal story or something. Like, I don't know. I kept expecting him to like extend his hand and do some body language so that it would look to me like, like he would be like, hi, my name is such and such. Can I ask you some questions or something, right? So that's the body language that I expected to see. Nope. No. So then I'm confused, right? Like that split second of thought, you're like, what's going on here? So then I started paying attention, right? So like up until that point, I wasn't really paying attention. I was just, trying to decide where I'm going to go, and am I going to go straight home, or am I going to go get some food? I was just sort of thinking through what my next steps were. Oh, hello, slowing down. What